For 40 years, Terry Lovelace kept his traumatic abduction experience to himself for fear of losing his job and reputation in the legal community wherein he worked. He finally decided to disclose the life-altering encounter after retirement, when the presence of an unexplainable implant was revealed in a routine X-ray on his leg. In 1977, Lovelace, then in his early 20s, experienced a mind-blowing close encounter. He and a friend and colleague named Toby, who were both serving in the US Air Force, were on a camping trip in or near Devil's Den State Park in northern Arkansas. The two friends had planned a 2-day camping trip with the intention of photographing eagles and wildlife. Rather than stay in the camping ground, they had decided to drive deep into a remote area and set up their camp on a high plateau, which gave them a scenic view of the wilderness. It was about 9 p.m. on their first night in camp when the two young men sat around their campfire, finding that they had to raise their voices to compete with the racket of chirping crickets and croaking tree frogs in conducting their conversation. In the midst of the din, things suddenly turned very strange when their whole surrounding ambience went deathly silent except for their crackling fire. Their attention was caught by a group of 3 very bright stars gleaming in the western sky. The stars were arranged in a triangle configuration, arousing speculation as to what they could be. Obviously not aircraft lights, but when the triangle moved, it became evident that the triangle was a huge black object, which was travelling higher and moving closer to their camp. The 3 bright lights now appeared high above the horizon, and the apex of the triangle definitely seemed to be gliding in the men's direction. Once the lights were overhead, the massive black object seemed to be parked 3,000 feet above them. Lovelace later described that 1/3 of the sky was covered by this huge black triangle overhead, blacking out every single star contained between the 3 points. The gigantic craft descended until it sat stationary about 30 feet above the surface of the meadow below. The size of the object was unbelievable. The black triangular prism was as wide as 2 city blocks, and its bulk towered as high as a 5-story building. Lovelace felt that the huge craft was checking them out as a cylindrical beam of milky light seemed to switch on and centre on their campsite for about a minute. This shaft of light was then switched off, and a scanning beam, like a blue laser light, roamed their spot, seeming to investigate objects that were not natural, such as their camping equipment, and Lovelace himself, who says that he was struck in the chest 3 times. Eerily, he described his feelings during this time as calm, even sedated, with any negative emotions like fear muted. When the darting laser-like beam shut off, he and Toby became sleepy, and the next thing he remembers was waking and seeing Toby peering out from the tent. The triangle was still hovering above, but over what appeared to be a dozen children who were roaming around in a field below them. Lovelace asked him what these children were doing out there in the middle of the night. Toby answered him, "These are not little kids. Don't you remember that they took us and they hurt us?" In that moment of hearing Toby's answer, Lovelace says that fragmented memories of having been inside the UFO flashed through his mind. He realised that the small figures were humanoids with large heads, with the beings moving towards a beam from the craft where they dematerialised. It was years later that hypnosis helped him to fill in more memory gaps, and he was able to recall actually encountering the beings while inside the UFO. Having kept this astonishing encounter secret for 40 years, the 2012 discovery of a strange and unexplained bodily implant inspired Terry Lovelace to finally publicise his experience in his book Incident at Devil's Den. The object, revealed by X-ray to be 1.5 inches deep in his thigh, presaged a flood of nightmares that he could not control. He states that his poor health and the onslaught of terrifying memories were the catalysts for the now retired Assistant Attorney General to come forward and finally disclose what happened back in 1977. The routine X-ray of Lovelace's leg showed an anomalous piece of metal the size of a fingernail and with 2 tiny wires attached. He recalled that what had followed his and Toby's sighting of the gigantic craft back in 1977 was a horrific abduction experience. The 2 friends had both suffered badly from burns and dehydration and ended up being hospitalised for 2 nights. At the time, Lovelace was interviewed by 3 special agents from the US Air Force Security Police's Office of Special Investigations. The investigators mistakenly believed that he had photographed the object, and he claimed to have been viciously interrogated by 2 of the special agents who were demanding that he hand over the non-existent film. Ironically, despite his Devil's Den camping trip having been planned for nature photography, he had absent-mindedly left his camera and equipment at home on the kitchen table. Now his house and car was searched with his consent, and he was hypnotised to expedite his recall. His subsequent psychological diagnosis of PTSD was considered by military clinicians as inexplicable, as he had never seen combat. Lovelace describes this aftermath of the sighting as a nightmare that left him and his wife greatly disenchanted with the whole UFO phenomenon and the allegations levelled against him. He had then never intended to tell anyone, but the shock finding of the implant in 2012 opened a door to a flood of memories of the abduction experience, which he had long forgotten and suppressed. His book relates the chilling and disturbing experience of his abduction, with ETs claiming not to hurt or harm him, but asking why he was screaming and showing a distinct lack of empathy or understanding of human physical and emotional pain responses. In a 2022 interview with paranormal researcher and podcaster Simon Bown, Lovelace described how the implant had been discovered. In 2012, he had experienced a pain in his right knee and his leg had been x-rayed in a veterans hospital. The unexplained square structure with 2 attached wires running up his leg had been revealed deep inside his thigh. He had been unable to get it removed in the US due to rules around veterans' healthcare procedures, and so finally made an appointment in a hospital in Tijuana, Mexico. He stated that in November 2017, prior to this appointment, he woke up in pain and found deep but bloodless puncture wounds at the top of both of his legs. A further X-ray revealed that the square metallic structure had been removed, although the 2 wires had been left in situ. It is his belief that the extraterrestrials knew of his plan to remove the device and had come to retrieve what he calls their merchandise. A health professional he was seeing at the time suggested that the ETs had improved their technology since the original implant and had given him a health upgrade. Either way, Lovelace believes that they did not want their device in human hands. There is a lot more to Terry Lovelace's story, as he believes that he has had a lifetime of UFO experiences since the age of 4 years old. He remembers 4 beings, non-human entities, appearing like monkeys to appeal to a young child, visiting him on a regular basis when a boy. At the age of 6, he remembers observing a large round disc, seeming as if made of polished aluminium, which appeared in the sky above him and then suddenly sped away. At the time of his sighting, all the usual sounds of the neighbourhood, cars, dogs barking, etc., were muffled and resumed when the craft disappeared. Nobody else had seen it. In 2016, he and another bystander witnessed a large silver cigar-shaped object in the sky above. Strangely, his wife, who was standing next to him, could not see it, unlike the woman witness standing nearby. This led to his belief that the aliens select who sees them and can exert power over the human mind. He states that his wife was visited in 1987 when she saw a small cloaked figure in their bedroom. The being spoke to her telepathically in a female voice, saying, "All is fine, go back to sleep." Like Lovelace and his friend Toby in 1977, she felt calm and relaxed, sedated during the experience, and had no trouble slipping into sleep again. Terry Lovelace is undoubtedly a sane, credible and well-educated witness, a 6-year veteran of the United States Air Force, where he served as a medic and member of the emergency medical team from 1973 to 1979. He achieved a bachelor's degree in psychology with honours at Park University in Kansas City, Missouri. He also completed a law degree at Western Michigan, where he passed the Michigan State Bar examination. His legal career started in private practice, and he was later admitted to the bar in Vermont and also in the U.S. territory of American Samoa. He was appointed as an Assistant Attorney General for both the U.S. territory of American Samoa and the state of Vermont.